Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Everything But Normal podcast. I am your host, David Borst, and today, ladies and gentlemen, I have two juicy articles for you, and boy, I am really hyped to actually report these. I was kind of keeping tabs on them for a little bit. I wanted to see if they progressed the story, and some did, and the other one really didn't. It kind of just stayed still, which is okay too, but I'm okay with it, and I'm really excited to report all these new findings for you guys, and hopefully we can enjoy ourselves here today because I'm in a really good mood. The day I'm recording, there was a career expo at the college, so I am in my nicest of clothing, and I must say, it is a honor to be producing such a great podcast I could use as a portfolio, and for everyone who's listened thus far, my whopping 3 episodes. Thank you so much for listening in and reporting, and I've had some feedback from everybody, so I'm going to do a couple announcements before we begin, just so we can touch base since it's been a hot second, as you know, I haven't really been in the studio as much. It's been very hectic this past couple weeks with personal life and school, so I hope to keep it back on track now, and keep this chain going that we have going, and I'm really excited that I'm back in the studio and recording. So with that being said, let's jump right into the announcements. So for my first announcement, I would like to first and foremost like to apologize again to the fans who've been listening to these episodes. I've been getting a lot of feedback when it comes to when I report most of these stories. Some people say that I'm not providing actual details or facts of the story. I'm just kind of going over and reviewing what the story's about, which, I mean, in total, that's what I am doing. But I do realize that I'm not actually quoting directly from the source, so it does make it a tad bit confusing at points. So I'm going to actually, today, when I go over the news articles, I'm going to read from the story, and then I will actually put a link down in the description of the actual news article so you can see that I'm not, plagiarizing or doing anything. And another announcement I would like to make is for the future of the show. We do have a couple stars. Well, I shouldn't say stars. We have a couple guests coming on to the show. I've reached out to a couple friends, a couple acquaintances, and we have something going. We have the ball rolling. So you're not going to only hear my voice. You're going to hear maybe 2 or 3 other voices in the near future. So I'm excited to announce that. And if you are interested in coming on the show, we do have email that you can use and contact me with. That will be in the description as well. So if you're interested in that, I also propose that. And for students here at Marywood, that is a good practicum hour or 2 hours that I typically record and spend in here. So that was it for the announcements. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into story number 1, which, might I say, it's the one I've been tracking that slightly changed. It's one of those stories that you're going to sit there and you're going to be like, okay, well, this happened 1.5 million times. What makes this so unique? And the story is called Vandals Steal Head of an 800-year-old Mummy in Ireland. Now, for those of you who follow up on any mummy stories, or for anyone who has a kind of an interest in this is not the first time mummies have been damaged. This is not the first time that mummies will be stolen or, taken hostage or whatever. But looking into the story, it's actually done here at NPR. NPR I've always came to for weird odd end stories since they have their own little category for it. So apparently this 800-year-old mummy's nickname was called the Crusader. Now, the Crusader, when I hear that, I think of a warrior or a man who was, going around town and kicking butt, essentially, of anyone who was causing any problems. So this man probably was very significant when it came to his strength, his power, and he probably had some authority going on wherever he came from. I'm going to presume Ireland, as this is where the church is. And that's another thing I would like to talk about is the church. The church was found in 1095. Now, that's nearly 1,000 years old. This is a really old church. This is one of those churches that, this was like a original finding mummy kind of church. And they said they have 5 mummies. Yes, 5 mummies that are pretty much attracting 27,000 visitors. That's incredible. That really is incredible statistics. They say many of the mummies are been dated back to 16 to 1800s. That's average. That was more of the time that they did it, which is incredible in itself as well. Because, everyone thinks that most mummies have been wrapped in like prehistoric dates in Egypt and all these other places, but a lot of societies and cultures have adapted like pretty much mummification. And I mean, it was to preserve originally the body for future technologies, and some of them did it for obviously other reasons such as religion and culture practice and all these other statistics and facts that pour into that. But straying off from the original topic at hand, we see here that this isn't the first time that the church has been hit with vandals and intruders. At the very end of the article here, it says that in 1996, intruders have damaged dozens of corpses and have claimed that the thieves have removed 40-some mummies from their coffins and made a pile of bones with them. That is just disturbing the rested. Rest in peace is just exactly that. You should be resting in peace. You shouldn't be having your body tampered with, 200 years later. It just doesn't go well. And I feel like there's some type of voodoo curse in there, but we won't dive into that aspect. Pure Point, this is a quote by the way, Pure Point remembered a chilling detail in an interview with the Times, saying that they dragged them up onto the ground and seemed to be playing football, or soccer for us, with the heads. Thankfully, at that time, the guards did their job extremely well and they caught the perpetrators. Can we talk about how wrong that is? That's so wrong. That is just not even right to think that us as a generation would even put anything that is, an artifact and put it into, first off, a human corpse that is nearly 200 or 400 years old. Okay. Now you're going to decapitate its head and then use it as a soccer ball and play a game with it. That just looks extremely bad on all parts. I would even say even the security guard, yeah, they say they handled it well. But what do you do? I mean, do you put the mummy back in and just say that nothing happened? Obviously, it's been reported, so that people have to know that. But on the same hand as well, you're just disturbing the peace, The body, again, is supposed to rest in peace, hence the term rip. It's just not right, and I don't agree with that, but I'm glad that it was handled. Again, it's apparently happening still. Security's not doing their job too well over there. But again, this is another story that has not been reported. It has not been really surfaced. I mean, obviously NPR has to report this as a term of like their awkward and weird news category. But it was definitely a story when I stumbled across it. I said, that is just absurd. And, I didn't even know about how these mummies went about, being put in and or how old half of these mummies actually were. So that was story 1. If you're a little triggered by them kicking the head around as a soccer ball, I am too. I'm right there with you. And a little weird that people would be doing that, and that this is not the first time that this church has been hit. And I have a feeling that the church is going to continue being hit with these vandals and robbers, as it doesn't seem that security's really keeping up on their end. And it's just strange news, if you would. So, on to the second story. I don't know, viewer, do you have tattoos? Are you one out of 10 people that probably have a tattoo? I am. I have 5 of them, actually. And if you're one of those people that have a tattoo, what if I told you that you, as a human, if you are mummified, could have your tattoo seen after you're dead? Would you want your body to be displayed like that? Would you want your artwork to be displayed? That's a question that you should be considering, because we have just discovered the oldest ever tattoos on Egyptian mummies. Now, the mummies I'm talking about today in this article are from the British Museum that the museum apparently has been collecting for more than 100 years, which that's a good investment. That's a fairly good investment to keep attraction coming. Now, the mummies that we're talking about here are prehistoric mummies. They actually, here from the article, they have been carbon dated, essentially. And I'm going to read right from the article here. Quote, radiocarbon dating indicated that they are likely from 3932 to 3030 BC, the pre-dynastic period, which that's a long way out. That is beyond what I could imagine in my head what society was like back then. It must have been a whole nother ball game, how they went about their obviously, of how they went about their tattoos. I would imagine they used whatever they could for tattoos. But these tattoos were very significant in their culture to the sense that obviously they resembled something or what they were known for. Here's a quote from the article. Quote, they might be badges of bravery or of skill or even trophies. They're referring to the male figure on the article. It seems like, again, these tattoos, they seem a little smudged. They're not obviously going to be crystal clear, but you do see what would be like an upside down L, or what would be a couple S's, but these could have been like, well, what the article would suggest here is like some sort of cattle, horns, something of, like just animals in general. They must have been obviously condoning some work ethic towards animals. Again, they were actually fairly good looking for back then. They must have used, again, any resource they could to get these tattoos. But one final quote I'm going to quote here is that they're not used, these tattoos were not used as a way of just getting them as people do now, I feel. But instead, quote, you're showing off tattoos. We know that they had colorful clothing. They had colorful leather. They probably looked fabulous, unquote. Now, I feel a lot of people like to shove their tattoos in other people's faces. It's a sign of stature nowadays, and it probably was back then too. But not to the point of, well, look at my tattoo this week, It's like me and my barber Brian are gonna go get another matching tattoo of the same haircut. He cuts my hair every week. Like, it's not gonna be like that, Like, they obviously use this as like a stature system, like, oh, look what I killed last week, and look what Tony over there is doing, cleaning clothes or something, It's like, it was a sign of, I think, whatever you were good at in this society, you had a marking of it. You were known as that symbol or emblem or whatever they had. It was what made them them. And they probably appreciated tattoos a lot more than I think some people who just get these random ones are ever going to enjoy. And I mean, I appreciate my tattoos. They're very meaningful to me in my own way. So when I hear people getting tattoos that have no meaning or just are just kind of there on them, I often question them on that, and I might stir some controversy as well. Why would you get a tattoo that has no meaning or, no value to you? But again, it was a whole nother time back then, and they did this as a stature system, I believe. So that's going to conclude it for this episode of Everything But Normal Podcast, everyone. Thank you again for listening in. I'm hoping my audio wasn't too loud there. It just suddenly spiked midway through, so I hope that it's not going to affect your ears or your listening experience. But if it does, I'll make sure that whatever the problem was this week, I will fix for the following upcoming week. So again, everyone, thank you again for listening to Everything But Normal Podcast. Follow me on Instagram at Everything But Normal Podcast, all one word. And I will see you in the next episode. And remember, stay strange.